Hello everyone, it's Maddie from English with Maddie, and today I wanted to start off my new interview series. I just wanted to share a little bit about different people, different jobs, different careers, different areas that people live, and all the while have a native speaker of English using English that they would actually use when being interviewed, when talking to somebody. And I thought it would be a great way to learn more about different people's speech patterns and to really hear real people out in the real world who aren't just English teachers who might be modifying their speech pattern or anything like that when talking with you. I'm going to start this off, and today's interview, our first interview, is going to be with me. So I was born and raised in Minnesota, which, if you know where Minnesota is, 10 points to you. The closest that a lot of people know out in the rest of the world to Minnesota is Chicago, which of course is about 6 hours away by car. Minnesota is in the northern part of the US, so quite close to Canada. The northern part of Minnesota borders Canada up there, and naturally we have very long, very horrendous winters. So between being Minnesotan and I think my natural personality, I prefer cold weather to hot weather. So traveling to places like Japan during the summer are always quite a struggle for me. Something about me that not a lot of people know in my current life and my current connections is that I was actually really sick when I was a kid. I spent years, most of my childhood, not knowing why I was sick. I saw a ton of doctors, I missed a lot of school, and by the time I got to high school, I was actually doing school completely online. So I dropped out of the last half of 9th grade, and then the rest of my high school career I was completely doing school from home, from my bedroom. I did find out that I had chronic Lyme's disease, and finally I got the right diagnosis and the right treatment, and eventually I started feeling like a normal kid, a normal human again. But it took a really long time, and that was really challenging. But at the same time, when I was doing online school, I was able to choose Mandarin Chinese as an elective class. And had I gone to my regular public school that I was supposed to go to, my only choices were like French and German and Spanish. So I ended up taking Mandarin, and I loved it. It was so hard, and it was really hard to do online, but I loved it. And I figured out from that point, when I was about 16 years old, how to be successful in learning a language, studying a language, practicing a language, when you're doing it online, when you're doing it primarily by yourself. So I started out with that, and through a whole variety of reasons, I ended up majoring in Asian studies in college. So I adored that, and my focus was on Japan, which was primarily because my school did not have Korean. So I was taking Japanese, and I thought I would only take Japanese until I could start taking Korean again, but then I fell in love with Japanese and I loved Japan. And all the meanwhile, I needed a minor. So when you go to an American university, you usually pick 1 or 2 majors, and then that major focus usually has a minor focus, or if there's something else you're passionate about, but you don't have the time or you don't want to actually major in it, you choose a minor. So that's usually like, 6 or 10 classes. And I was like, well, maybe I'll study linguistics. And it was pretty arbitrary. it was kind of random, but my university had an intro to linguistics class and enough courses to finish that minor. So I decided to take the class. And I think it was a whole lot of things just fell into place. And the teacher I had, Joanne, oh my gosh, to this day, I adore everything about her and the classes she taught and everything she inspired me to do, and she was so supportive of my journey. So from that class, that intro to linguistics class, it just hit me. I have to study this. I have to study not only a foreign language, but I need to study language itself. And through that, I ended up creating another major in linguistics and teaching ESL and becoming a TA with the ESL classes at my university. I worked in the writing center as a writing assistant for anybody, not just ESL students, but anybody in the university for the rest of my time in school. I studied in Japan for a semester. I went back and interned for a semester. And it was while I was in Japan, again, like I went from being this sick kid to doing online school to kind of discovering my educational path, and I was very focused on that. I was very in my head about my academic career and what am I going to do and where am I going to go. I was not really focusing on the social things, which was helped along by the fact that my university was an all-women's university. It was just all education all the time. So I get to Japan, right? And I'm thinking, all of my preparations were what I personally was going to do. The classes I would take, the museums I would go to, how I would study, and all of that just like I threw it out the window as soon as I got there. I made some amazing friends, and immediately I just started making all these connections. And as I'm doing that, what I really wanted to do, and what I realized I did in the US when I made a friend, was I wanted to make something. I wanted to go into my kitchen and make something, but I couldn't. My host mom had a very, very traditional Japanese house, including a very tiny kitchen that had like a stove, like 2-burner stove, and a sink, and a refrigerator. And that was the extent of the kitchen. And so I didn't bake anything for 5 months, and I couldn't share anything with my friends, except for one time when I took over my friend who had an apartment. I took over his kitchen. But I had to like buy him all the ingredients and the things. It was chaotic. But I loved that moment, that one moment when I was abroad that I could actually share pastries with my friends, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I need to at least try to do pastry as a career. So even though I still had a semester in Korea ahead of me, I started looking into pastry school. I started looking into how I could study pastry in the future. So I packed up all of my things after I graduated and I moved to France. I moved to the south of France, to the middle of nowhere south of France, with a completely random pastry school that I found online. And in the beginning I thought, okay, I'll get through this program, I'll do these 3 months, I'll learn French, I'll learn about pastry, I'll do the internship, and then I'll just go get my master's degree in linguistics. I really thought that's what I was going to do. And the learning French and the being abroad was just, you know, kind of a rest between undergrad. It was like a gap year between undergrad and a master's degree. And I got to my internship and I was placed in a Michelin restaurant in Juan-les-Pins, which is between like Nice and Cannes in the south of France. And the first 2 weeks, the culture shock of being in this place, working in a Michelin restaurant, having 2 French roommates in the same dorm room, and sharing a bathroom with like 18 other people, all of the rest of them French boys, which like 1 bathroom, 18 boys is not ideal. So yeah, that was the situation. I barely spoke French. And 2 weeks went by and I was like this close to going home. Every single day, every shift, every service in the restaurant, I was like, Maddie, what are you doing? What are you doing with your life? Why are you here? This is horrible. And something happened in that next week and it just clicked. Something just started to make sense. And within the next couple of weeks, it went from being, what are you doing here? To, how can I keep doing this for the rest of my life? And things very quickly changed, and the restaurant and being there and creating desserts and running service, it was just my happy place, and I could not imagine ever giving that up. So I came back to the US and I worked for several years in a pastry shop here in Minneapolis. But of course, you know my linguistic tendencies by now, and even though I love making pastries, I love French style pastries, macarons, tarts, all that kind of stuff. I love it and I love to share it. It's a huge part about who I am. But the language component in Minnesota, it was not there. It was not there, and I really felt like I was missing part of me, and it didn't make sense to keep doing that. Even though I loved the work, it was not everything I wanted. So I went back to the drawing board, and an entire week of Googling my future, as my friend and I like to refer to it, I Googled everything, and also knowing me, I made like 10 lists. What do I want? What do I want right now? What do I want 10 years from now? Where am I going with my life? What am I passionate about? What things are important, what's valuable, what can I let go of? And I remember being in my bed, in the middle of the night, it's, pitch black and just the light from my computer screen. And I was like, okay, I need to move back to Korea. So I did. That was last year. I moved back to South Korea and I took 2 more semesters there of Korean classes at Seoul National University. And I think in that time, I got a lot more clarity about what I want from living abroad, from working abroad, from rediscovering how much I enjoy teaching, and specifically teaching English and helping other people on their journey. And there were just so many components that I wanted to stick together, and I still wasn't quite sure how. And if you've ever been part of an intensive language program, if you've ever been to Seoul National University or have heard of it, it was pretty intense. So even though I was having all of these thoughts in the back of my head, I didn't have a lot of time or a lot of resources to be figuring out how to put everything together. So while this coronavirus pandemic situation has been horrible, it has also given me the space to kind of bring all of those thoughts into fruition, which is how English with Maddie started. So I have been running my YouTube channel for pastry videos, and I got my official certification for teaching ESL, and just a lot of like recipe development and reading and studying Korean. But then also I've been tutoring English. And as I tutor more and more students who are passionate about learning English, and I've really, really enjoyed helping them, and I've enjoyed the lesson planning and just everything surrounding that. So as time went on, and I had more and more students who would come to me and say, I love our lessons, but what else can I do? What can I do until I see you next week? What can I do this month? What can I do tonight? And of course, there are so many resources online, but I am such a reader. I love reading. It's what I try to do for all of my language learning goals. And so I kept telling my students, I want you to read more. I think you should read more. But it's really hard to just vaguely say, go forth and read. Go read some things, go find some YouTube videos. Especially when there's no structure, especially for beginner students or people who just need a little bit more of a scaffolding to say, yeah, do this, and you can do whatever you want within this, but here are the goals, or here are the parameters, here's where to start. And I realized that while I'm doing my pastry stuff and while I'm doing my own language learning, I want to be that person for other people. I want to be the person who says, yeah, let me help you. Let me show you where to start. Let me help you when you're struggling. Let me give you advice. And I also want to be that person for other ESL teachers and tutors to say, I know how much work goes into a good lesson plan. And if I can in any way assist you, I want to do that because I love that creative process. I love the linguistic process. And I think it really shows when somebody is passionate about the work they're doing. And so it's hard. It's hard to always have that passion. And even passionate people have moments when they're stuck, they're drained, they have so much going on that it can be hard to create content. So I'm hoping through this program and through my new video series and my new cooking video series and everything that I can sort of wrap all of my interests into one huge bundle of love and share it with you. So I hope you all enjoyed this first interview in my series with me and hearing a little bit more about my backstory and how I got to where I am today. If you have any other questions, I know I talked about a lot of things today. There was a lot of content there. So if you have any specific questions or want to know more about anything I said or things that I didn't say, please leave me a comment down below. Also, today's interview video is going to come along with a few different worksheets that you will also find. So the first one is going to be word for word, or as much as I can, transcribe everything that I said down below. And that is going to be considered the advanced version of this video segment. And then in addition to that, I'm going to have a list of questions that I was basing some of my answers off of, and I'll have a modified kind of question and answer interview if you want to know what kinds of questions could prompt what kinds of answers. And then in addition to that, I'm going to have 3 different summary levels. So I will have an intermediate level, which will be a pretty detailed description of all of the things that I talked about, though not word for word. And then I will have a beginner level that is a beginning English level summary about what this interview is about, who I am. And then there will be a final absolute beginner text, which is just a few sentences summarizing what I talked about. Then in addition to all of those things, there will also be a couple worksheets that you can go off of. If you are trying to listen and pick up on words as I go, I will have my transcript with some blank lines so you can listen again and try to write down the words that you're hearing me say. In addition to that, I will have a couple key vocabulary words that might have been confusing that hopefully you can learn from and study from. So thank you everybody for listening to this interview with me today, and I hope you look forward to the next in our interview series. I have some really cool friends and family and acquaintances that I have set up interviews with, and I'm so excited to share all of their interviews and to help you guys learn not only English but also about all sorts of different people all over the world. So thank you guys for watching and learning with me, and I will see you next time.